Hi, everybody. Sorry to cut things off, but first off, I want to wish you all a good evening, and I want to welcome you all to this Tiburon Town Council candidate forum. I'm Francisco Martinez. I'm the Tiburon reporter here at the ARC. We know you may have hired a sitter or had your partner watch the kids, postponed a planned dinner or date night, or at least in my case, put Jeopardy on the DVR, so thank you for carving out the time to be here. I'm glad I got one laugh. I'd like to thank our co-host, the League of Women Voters of Marin, for moderating tonight's event, and the four candidates, Chuck Hornbrook, Isaac Nickfar, Holly Fear, and Andrew Thompson, for their participation tonight. The ARC, which is celebrating its 51st year serving the community, and the League do not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. A strictly nonpartisan organization, the League of Women Voters follows a mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of their vision of a democracy where every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. We'd also like to say that there are many questions that we won't be able to get to tonight, but the ARC will be following up with the candidates in the next days to ask questions this forum couldn't get to. Full coverage of this event and those follow-ups, as well as a September 26th candidate forum organized by the Reed Heights Tiburon Knolls Property Owners Association, will appear in the October 16 edition of the ARC next week. For complete and ongoing news coverage of this election, please visit thearcnewspaper.com/election2024, and you can find the ARC on Facebook, Instagram, X, now formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, and Nextdoor. And now I hand you over to our moderator, League member Linda Deere. Linda, take it away.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Good. Hello and welcome to this candidate forum presented by the ARC and the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I am Linda Deere, a member of the Marin League, and your moderator for this evening's event. With me are Elaine Biagini, our timekeeper, and Carol Joy Harris, our question sorter. The four candidates here with us tonight are running to fill 2 vacant seats on the Tiburon Town Council. The elected council members will serve until November 2028. The candidates are Chuck Hornbrook, Isaac Nickfar, Holly Fear, and Andrew Thompson. Before we get started, let's quickly review a few ground rules. Please take a minute to silence your cell phones and any other noise-making devices. That's always an oh my moment. Candidates are asked to not interrupt one another and to refrain from any personal attacks. Candidates and audience members are expected to be respectful at all times. Because the League is a strictly nonpartisan organization and follows Federal Election Commission rules, no campaign materials, no buttons, signs, brochures, or T-shirts are permitted in this room. The Community Media Center of Marin will be recording this forum. The video will be available on the ARC's website and on the League of Women Voters website at www.marinlwv.org. Please note the signs posted on the walls of this room. Your presence here tonight constitutes permission to use your likeness on the air. We encourage audience members to submit questions on the index cards provided. There should be one on every seat. Just raise your hand and either Kevin Hessel or Linda Sula will collect the card. Cards will then be passed to Carol Joy for sorting. Each candidate has been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. We'll begin with Chuck Hornbrook.
Great, thank you. And thanks for everybody for being here, the ARC and the League of Women Voters, and my fellow candidates. My name's Chuck Hornbrook, and I live in Hill Haven, which is just a neighborhood up here on the hill. I'm married. I have a son who's a sophomore in high school. I have an MBA and an MS in Environmental Studies from the University of Michigan, and I advise companies on clean energy issues. I'm running for town council because I'm committed to making our community better for all of us. I want to just tell you a quick little story about that to highlight who I am as a person and tie that into it. About 2 years ago, I was the Little League commissioner for 7th and 8th graders, which gave me the responsibility to recruit kids and place them on fair teams. There was a kid whose name always came up as a potential player. I didn't know his ability or background. I just heard he was a good kid. I sent emails to his mom, but I never got any replies. I could have given up, but I didn't. I finally called her and spoke to her about baseball and her son. She said he wanted to play, but wasn't sure how to get to practice. She's a single mom, 3 kids, and works. She also said he had grown a lot and needed a new pair of pants, cleats, and a glove, right? Because that takes a lot of time, and kids grow a lot. I reassured her that if her son wanted to play, the league would cover his costs with a scholarship. I'd take care of the equipment and the baseball community in Tiburon. So I got him signed up, and a few emails asking for donations for used equipment. I made sure that he made it to all the practices and games with my son, regardless of the logistics, and it wasn't always easy. But in the end, he contributed on the field, he got to play with his friends, and have fun, and that's what is the most important thing. There was a need, it required action, consistent commitment from me. And that's what's important to us with the town council. When I see something that needs to be addressed in our community, I identify it, I look it up, I seek options, and I've solved the problem. That's who I am. So with that introduction, I'm excited to be here tonight and listen to your questions and provide thoughtful answers. And again, thank you for your time and for being here. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Isaac?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the ARC for hosting the event tonight. I'd like to begin tonight by speaking to my record of public service in Tiburon over the past nearly 13 years. As former chair of Tiburon Parks Open Space and Trails Commission, I spent 5 years working hard to preserve Tiburon's open space and improve our parks. During COVID-19, we ensured that our residents could use parks and open spaces, brought McKegney online, and really understood how parks became a critical part of our life here in Tiburon. I went on to start the process for this Parks Master Plan with Angela McInerney, and have continued that on with the Tiburon Town Council. I also volunteer my time as the athletic director for St. Hilary's CYO, one of the most successful basketball and volleyball programs in Marin. We really punch above our weight. And provide scholarships to families in need. I've also served as a commissioner and coach in Little League basketball, volleyball, soccer, etc., and wanted to speak to my endorsements by several members of the Reed Union School Board, the Planning Commission, Parks, Open Space, and Trail Commissioners, former council member who's here in attendance, Jack Ryan, former Mayor Emmett O'Donnell, Assemblymember Damon Connolly, and over 400 Tiburon residents who backed me last August, and I hope and respectfully ask for your vote again this year.
Thank you. Holly?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Holly Thier. I'm your vice mayor. I'm also an elected director on the Golden Gate Bridge Board. I'm also a past president of the League of Women Voters. So I want to thank the League, I want to thank the ARC, and I want to say if anyone hasn't registered, I'll register you tonight. Sorry, guys, I have to do that. So I want you to join me in imagining the Tiburon of the future. So we live in a great community, and people are happy, but what I look at is how can we make it better? I don't see the glass. I don't see any glass. I don't see the Tiburon or the world as it exists. I see what it could be. So I see endless possibilities for improving the lives of our residents. Today, I'm just going to talk about a few of the things that I've done, my major accomplishments. I expanded our open space by acquiring part of the Richard Bay Sanitation District, and I supported the Martha property. That's why Jerry Reeson here tonight is actually supporting me. I'm also known as an environmental champion. I have the early endorsement of the Sierra Club. I stopped the town from spraying Roundup. We were spraying it around our picnic tables and around the playgrounds. Now we can't spray anything like it. I spearheaded the effort to bring broadband to Tiburon. I've led the town from going from the Yema incident to what I think is the most successful diversity inclusion task force, and I've chaired that for 4 years. And to help mitigate traffic on Tiburon Boulevard, I proposed the Tiburon Trolley. I'm running for re-election because I want to finish the job. I'm proud to be supported by Congressman Jared Huffman, State President Mike McGuire, Assemblymember Damon Connolly, Supervisor Moulton Peters, the Sierra Club, the Marin IJ, the Democratic Party, the firefighters, the North Bay Labor Council, Building Trades, Tiburon Open Space, and hundreds of Tiburon electeds and commissioners. But tonight, I would be most honored if I could earn your support and your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew Thompson. I was first elected to the Tiburon Town Council, believe it or not, on my 30th birthday. I'm a second generation of Thompsons working for the betterment of Tiburon. I'm also the only council member that actually grew up in Tiburon. When people ask me what I do, I go, well, commercial real estate feeds my pocketbook, but community service feeds my soul. And I know that sounds hokey, but it's really true. I absolutely love making a difference for this community. I'm running because the council, frankly, needs my experience. I see where they're making mistakes, and I know I can do it better. One thing I can do is, as one of the most experienced council members in Tiburon history, I'd like to give you some advice on how to make a choice for council members. There's really 4 criteria. 1, are they selfless, dedicated to the town, rather than personal gain, or are they beholden to outside special interest groups? Collegial, working effectively with others to get things done. Skills, they have skills like construction, project management, property law, fiscal management, all very important for a town. Most importantly, do they have the time and the ability to get the job done? I have all those criteria. Selflessness, well, that just speaks for itself. Been there, done that. I don't need the fame. Collegial, we might disagree on issues, but we have to remember we are all Team Tiburon here. And that means we need to work together and get the job done. Skills, I have experience in fiscal management, strengthening neighborhoods, organizations, real estate projects, management, and the proven track record of saving your particular tax dollars. Finally, I'm an empty nester. I've got all the time in the world now to dedicate back to Tiburon, and I'm really ready to put it all on the line for you again. So I look forward to that.
Thank you. Now for the questions. Candidates will each have 1 minute to answer. To be fair, I will rotate the order in which questions are asked. Candidates, please feel free to ask me to repeat any question. We'll begin with Isaac. Okay, first question. Regarding the recent Marin Superior Court order to remove the 93-unit Paradise Drive site from Tiburon's housing element, what is your position on inclusion of this parcel in the housing element? And what steps should the town council take to ensure the town remains certified and avoids penalties such as builder's remedy? Isaac, we'll start with you.
Now, before, we only get a minute?
I know. I probably should make this 2 questions. You all want me to make it 2 questions? I will. No? We okay? All right.
Okay. All right. So it was a very memorable meeting. It was my first meeting on town council. And there were probably about 8 times as many people here for that meeting. As you can imagine, a lot of really passionate people. Mostly asking us to not include Site H. And I think, my vote was to abstain. There were a lot of closed session meetings that I wasn't a part of. And my own take was that I believe there's a path forward with ADUs. I think that's it's a program that we need to invest more time in with the state. Because we're going to be asking for larger than our normal allocation of ADUs, and I think that the process of having ADUs spreads growth throughout town. It's a more sustainable way that's less likely to tax our services and roads, of which we only have 1 going in and out of town. And I believe that sets us up in a stronger position for the future, and I think we can handle, those 93 units through ADUs over the next 8 years.
Thank you. Holly?
Great. I want to thank you for that question. I want to say that I support affordable housing. I support workforce housing here in Tiburon. Our firefighters, our teachers, our police officers should be able to live in the community that they serve. Because Site H was invalidated by the Superior Court, what that means when we talk about the builder's remedy, that means that a builder can just come in and they don't have to comply with any objective design standards. That means they can kind of build however they want. So I am very focused on making sure that we do not allow the builder's remedy to happen and that our housing element is not invalidated. right now, what the court said was that there has to be more environmental review of Site H, or we can pick other sites. The town council is having a closed session on this very topic in about a week from tomorrow. So I will be very focused on making sure that we do not let the builder's remedy kick in and we preserve our housing element.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah. Coincidentally, I was also, believe in workforce housing. I was actually the advocate that caused us to buy the town's first marsh units right behind us here. So I started that. This housing situation is an utter disaster. It's basically destroying one of the most important things of being a town, which is local control of our land use planning. And it's horrendous. The reality is, because of my experience, I can see not just where we are, but where are we going to end up. The reality is we're not going to comply, okay? We're not. And so we have to prepare for that. And furthermore, we need to do a better job of organizing cities like us all over California, use our political and economic muscle, and get the legislation changed. And they know they've tried, but it was not very good. And we need to do that again and apply real pressure to Sacramento and get our local control back.
Thank you. Chuck?
Thanks for the question. So it was specifically on inclusion and steps that the town can address. So first, inclusion on Site H, I'd say no. I think that was a bad decision. The Planning Commission came to the town council with a plan specifically on not including that site with higher density downtown, and the town council rejected that. I think that was a mistake. We should have not included Site H. The other thing that we should do in coordination with this is address the traffic, right? I live downtown here. Everybody's like, how can we have more housing downtown and not deal with the traffic? We must start addressing the traffic now and start moving forward with that, as well as coordinating with our friends over in Belvedere. They have the same issues, and all their housing is down on this side of Tiburon Boulevard as well. So we need to work with them on traffic, higher density downtown, and not have sites like Site H or others on Paradise Drive, which make no sense for people trying to get around and do things. It's just it's a bad notion, and it's unfortunate that the town council decided to do that. Thank you for your time.
Next question, and we're going to begin with Holly. It's a related question. Because of the ferry service, Sacramento has classified Tiburon as a commuter hub and has therefore imposed a requirement for over 600 new units. How do you propose to address this mandate? Holly?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for that question. So I want to say that when this mandate came down, I was actually mayor. I went to the Association of Bay Area Governments and I fought this. Like every other town and city throughout the state of California, I said, we cannot have 639 new units. Our previous quota for affordable housing was 120 units. Because there's a ferry, that doesn't mean that this small town can absorb that many units. And mind you, I do support affordable housing. Like every other jurisdiction in the state of California, we were told no. We're not going to take your appeal. You have to comply. The town has already complied and has, through our general plan, we included a housing element that identified sites for those units. I was a big proponent of ADUs, like my colleague Isaac, and I had our town do a whole marketing program to try to encourage our residents to build more ADUs. I think that's a key part of compliance.
Andrew?
Again, this is absurd mandates. First of all, I don't think we're really a ferry hub. Our ferry service is extremely limited. We're not moving that many bodies. So I don't even think the allocation is justified. And I think we have to fight that as well. I just think people are falling into this state mandates, and yes, we have to show that what we can do, and ADUs is one solution, but we're never going to get to these numbers. And if we do put it into the town, the locals, just like on Paradise Drive, are going to sue us and fight all the way. So let's get out ahead of this and change the law.
Thank you. Chuck?
Great. So I'm also on the Ferry Advisory Committee, and I ride the ferry, and that's actually why we selected this house down here, so we could take the ferry into downtown San Francisco. I think that what we needed to do early on was work with the state, again, Belvedere with us, and say, we need to increase access to downtown. We need to work with you to do that, and then we will become good citizens in terms of housing. We didn't do that. We missed our opportunity to collaborate with Caltrans, with the state, to do those pieces. So I agree, it's a tough situation that we're in, but the ferry is there and it has access to do things, and that's the one piece. And on ADUs, that's a nice little piece to add to it, but we can't put all our eggs in the ADU basket. So we're going to have to do, again, more housing down here, housing above Reed Elementary for employee housing, and all the different pieces there. But again, there's the ferry services here. It's access to downtown San Francisco. It's the reason why a lot of people have moved here, and there's an ability to do that and keep the traffic down here. And the final point is 90% of the people who work in Tiburon commute here. Thanks.
Thank you. Isaac?
Yeah, so could you repeat the question?
Sure. Because of the ferry service, Sacramento has classified Tiburon as a commuter hub and has therefore imposed a requirement of over 600 new units. How do you propose to address this mandate?
Yeah, so a couple things. I want to make sure everyone who hasn't been following the news understands that every town that has fought this and sued the state and tried to apply pressure has lost. Cost their town hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and opened themselves up to risk with the builder's remedy. So this is something that the town and the town attorneys have advised against, because you're just opening yourself up to costly litigation. And my path forward is really around ADUs and taking the control back, giving it to Tiburon residents. Building in Tiburon needs to be sustainable. That growth is key. I think the other piece of it is I'm also leading the charge with Belvedere City Council members and Mill Valley around how do we improve our traffic, including this traffic study. My goal is to get people from downtown to 101 in 15 minutes. We're going to do that through technology, partnering with Caltrans, and we're going to help build this sustainable growth in Tiburon by, again, leading the charge with ADUs, going back and negotiating with the state, and building sustainably. Thank you.
Next question, we're going to begin with Andrew. This is the last housing question, at least until they come in from the audience. By the end of your first term, the state will be reviewing Tiburon's actual mid-cycle progress toward issuing permits for new housing. If the town doesn't meet those goals, we'll be subject to penalties similar to the builder's remedy. How will you work directly with downtown landowners like ACV Argo and Belvedere Land Company to issue permits for the roughly 275 required new downtown units in the next 3 years?
Okay, like I said, given my experience in 30 years of working here in Tiburon, we can go ahead and put that in. We can allocate it, we can approve it, and we're going to get sued by everyone along Mar West because it's going to block their views. And we even have some landlords that don't even want to build on their property because of the traffic concerns. So again, it's going to be, we can authorize, we can put it into the housing element as it is, but it's just going to get bogged down in quagmire. And so maybe that's the route, because then we can say we complied, but it's not, we're all just chasing bad land use planning, which is why I want to figure out a better solution. And it means really coordinating with the entire county and finding really good solutions and then making new deals with the state.
Thank you. Chuck?
Great, thanks for the question. So I would approach this like a sales issue, right? So you get a pipeline of where you need to be on the projects, and you know the sites. So there's the sites that have high density and the possibility to do that. And actually, I was talking to one of the landowners today, and I said, what is the barrier for keeping you guys to build on these sites? And they're like, that's a great question. Love to talk to you more about that. And I don't know why our town council now hasn't even started doing that. Because as you stated in the question, in 4 years, this has to be done. 275 units have to be permitted. We should start going through that now with accountability with the staff, going through a project plan to say, like, have you contacted them? Where's the permits? What's keeping us from doing the permits with both Shark's Deli location, the location where B of A is, this nice little parking lot right over here, all these pieces, the site behind Reed Elementary, it's setting it up like a project or like a sales plan, identifying these pieces. The current town council doesn't have that skill set to drive staff to do that. That's why you need a town council like myself. Thank you.
Isaac?
If you're wondering why we haven't been meeting with downtown landowners, wonder no more. We are. I met with AC Argo. I met with Lala Zielinski. The feedback from the major landowners in Tiburon is that money's expensive. And if you understand how the current state of interest rates, you understand that. It's very difficult to obtain financing right now. That's the main barrier to building downtown. It looks like it's becoming more favorable, and I think that's going to play in our favor over the long run. But I think that's, I talk to them, I meet with them. I have my office hours on Fridays at a CRE. You're all welcome to come down too, if you have questions. And I think that's one of the things that's really important, is having someone who does meet with folks in town and makes themselves available and rolls up their sleeves and wants to get things done. So that's my sense in meeting with actual stakeholders downtown.
Thank you. Holly?
I'm going to have you repeat that question.
Sure. By the end of your first term, the state will be reviewing Tiburon's actual mid-cycle progress toward issuing permits for new housing. If the town doesn't meet those goals, we'll be subject to penalties similar to builder's remedy. How will you work directly with downtown landowners like ACV Argo and Belvedere Land Company to issue permits for the roughly 275 required new downtown units in the next 3 years?
Okay, so this makes me very excited, because one of the things that Isaac just said is that we are already working with our businesses downtown. We're already working with the landowners. Do you know that when we lost our movie theater in Tiburon, who were the first people that I called? It was the people that had that space, and I said, we have to get a new movie theater. We have to put a theater in. It's a priority. It's a priority for this small town, and guess what? We have a theater. The same with the candy shop. When the candy shop went away, I said the same thing, and we're getting something new that's going to be fabulous. So with respect to building housing units downtown, I'm already working with all of our developers, encouraging them, and there's a whole other group of people that are not in Tiburon that also can look to meet the goals. I am confident in our town and our staff that we will meet our goals. We have a certified housing element, and we worked for 2 years to make that happen, and our staff did an impeccable job.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We're going to begin with Chuck. What can be done to create viable transportation options from Tiburon to San Francisco or other parts of Marin? Consider the fact that in the Create Tiburon 2040 survey, residents ranked ferries as the #1 service they'd like to see increased. Chuck?
Great, thanks for the question. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm on the volunteer committee for public input to the ferry committee. So or the ferry system, thank you. So right now what we're doing is I'm actually advising them to increase ferry usage. So one of the things that I did was actually move the ferry start time from 7:50 to 8:10. And for those of you who have kids in school, that lines up better for being able to do that. And then I actually just made another suggestion to them to add a ferry at 2 o'clock. So when you leave San Francisco, because it goes from 12:35, I think, to 3 o'clock, to add a 2 o'clock ferry so the people who have kids can then make that 2 o'clock ferry, get home, and pick up their kids. So it's that type of conversation with them to increase ferry viability. The other thing that I've talking to them is actually adding a ferry that goes San Francisco, Sausalito, Tiburon, home to Larkspur. They don't have like an owl service, and it's such a simple thing to add for a late night service for those who might be coming from a Giants game or some other pieces. But it means a conversation with them. Thank you.
Thanks. Isaac?
Do you mind repeating the question one more time?
Sure. What can be done to create viable transportation options from Tiburon to San Francisco or other parts of Marin? Consider the fact that in the Create Tiburon 2040 survey, residents ranked ferries as the #1 service they'd like to see increased.
As a very long-time ferry rider, I can tell you we've done this. So we did this pre-COVID. We worked with Golden Gate Ferry to adjust times to make them more school-friendly. COVID hit the ferry service pretty hard, and I think it still hasn't completely recovered. And I think that's where, working closely with Golden Gate Ferry and understanding their approach, and Golden Gate Ferry's approach is very different than East Bay Ferry. East Bay Ferry brought back all their routes and didn't care that they were empty. Golden Gate Ferry has decided they wanted to slowly ramp up service, and so it's continuing to put that pressure on Golden Gate Ferry to ask for more routes, lining it up with school times. We did this before COVID. We're doing this now. This is just a natural progression, and I think Golden Gate. I know the workers on the ferry well. They're great folks. They want to help. And we'll get there. But I think it's a slow roll, and we can't just sort of put a Band-Aid on it. We tried that with a private ferry service, and it didn't turn out well. So I think we've got to make sure we double down with Golden Gate and work with them.
Thank you. Holly?
Thank you so much for that question, Linda. So as the director who's elected to serve on the Golden Gate Bridge Board, I was elected by all of the mayors and council members in Marin, so that's 11 cities and towns. I am working with our director, with our general manager, to do a ferry survey for Tiburon specifically. We're going to reach out and we're going to figure out what times work best. Anytime you change the ferry by a little bit, one group complains, another one complains, and we've decided we're going to get it right. So look for that coming up. It's going to be very exciting. In addition, I proposed Tiburon Trolley. Tiburon Trolley would start over near Strawberry and actually connect Tiburon to other transportation services. One thing that I don't think was very smart about the SMART train is that they didn't come to Tiburon. Had I been on the council, I would have made sure that happened. But I am excited by that question. I think the future of transportation is going to be changed. Tiburon Trolley is going to be an all-electric open-air vehicle, and I'll talk more about that later.
Thank you. Andrew?
Love ferries. I rode the ferry to work throughout the 90s and then the next decade. It was absolutely fantastic. It was probably the heyday of the ferries. We had the Zelinsky catamaran boat, so fast. It had seating that it was social, a blast. And they had basically a ferry every 2 hours. Not happening. So we have to work with reality. Isaac was right when he goes, COVID hit it. It is decimated. Our commute patterns are totally different. I lease up office buildings. Do you know what the vacancy pretty much is close to in San Francisco? 50%. Nobody's going to work anymore. It's totally different. And that is why we need to make that argument as well with the state as far as housing. Now back to housing, just something, because I wanted to sound like there's nothing we can do. I've had an idea since when I was first in office in the early 90s, and that was senior housing downtown. Top floor, high density floors, maybe next floor, kind of quasi-assisted living, and then maybe some memory care. All residents who don't have to leave their community, but now have the services without stairs right downtown. So I think that's a great solution. Proposed it to a couple landlords. They weren't interested.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to begin with Isaac. School traffic is a nightmare. What solutions would you recommend? Comment on a free or incentivized bus service, as well as programs encouraging kids to ride bikes or walk to school.
All right, so I'm a big fan of the yellow bus program. I think what Councilmember Ryan, Sarah Klein, and other folks put together was an incredible system. All three of my kids took it when they went through the Reed School District K through 8. continued taking the bus at Redwood. I think it's an incredibly important service. I think it should be fully subsidized, and I support that by both Tiburon and Belvedere. And I would say also to address bikes, our household is a no e-bike household. I like the kids riding regular bikes. I understand hills and that sort of thing, but we've got to have bike trains. We've got to have people that are willing to make responsible choices around getting to and from school. Bikes are a great way. My kids also rode their bikes to Bel Air. We live in Del Mar, so they just walked across the street for Del Mar. But that's what I would say is we've got to restart the bike trains. COVID hit the bike trains pretty hard as well as the Yellow Bus program. So
Thank you. Holly?
Great, thank you for that question. So my kids also took the yellow bus all the time. I'm also on the JPA, the yellow bus JPA. We're constantly looking at how to mitigate traffic on Tiburon Boulevard. A couple of plans that I have is actually, have you ever seen some projects in your neighborhood where 25 construction workers drive their private cars to your house and park in your neighborhood? So I'm working with our department to create construction management plans so that the construction vehicles can go in, but only one vehicle, and the company has to transport their workers in a shuttle. They shuttle them in. That will reduce traffic. I'm working on Tiburon Trolley, which is an all open-air electric free vehicle that will go up and down Tiburon Boulevard and reduce trips of people driving their child to Bel Air and then to the BTC or the TPC. In addition, I'm working with Caltrans to time the traffic signals better and also to create smart traffic signals. Thank you.
Thanks.
What
Andrew?
was the question again? Because we hit a lot of subjects.
School traffic is a nightmare. What solutions would you recommend? Comment on a free or incentivized bus service, as well as programs encouraging kids to ride bikes and walk to school.
Yes. Okay. Definitely. I mean, I was Tiburon Traffic Committee in the 90s, and we were really trying to force carpooling. We didn't have the yellow bus yet. I think I also support the yellow bus. I think it's a great idea. We need to move a couple of the stops off Tiburon Boulevard onto side streets because they completely block traffic. And a trolley, well, it really ought to be integrated. I mean, it's so that it's totally coordinated. And yes, if we can subsidize this, all the better. The problem with the yellow bus right now is they're having scheduling issues, and people are starting to abandon it. So we need to fix that. It needs to be on schedule. Another thing, also, around 2000, I said if we're going to have a construction permit, construction workers cannot come in or out of Tiburon during crunch time. I nicknamed it crunch time at that time. That's the time in the morning and the afternoon when it's the hour that's most bad. I couldn't get 3 votes, so maybe I can get 3 votes now.
On that note, Chuck?
Great, thanks for the question. So I'm on the Safe Routes to School group, and we actually look at all the data. So just to give a kind of context for that, at Del Mar Middle School, 66% of the kids come either on the bus, bike ride, or walk. 66%, so pretty good. On the flip side, Reed, it's at 43%. So parents want to drive their kids to school. So we just need to figure out how to incentivize the Reed Elementary to encourage more either carpools on that front and maybe identifying parents in different neighborhoods. That's the one piece I would do. And it's great that that we're talking about the carpooling with construction workers. That was one of my plans that actually I published at the beginning of September, and I'm glad that that's being looked at by other members up here during the election. That's awesome. And then the other thing that I would just mention is on transit is that the 219, which is the bus that goes from Strawberry here, is subsidized at $800,000 a year. That's how much it's costing, and they have 9,000 riders a quarter. So that's the success of that system right now. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to start with Holly. Since the Yema incident in 2020, Tiburon has increased the number of police and patrol cars, is on track for the greatest number of citizen detentions, and racial disparities in stops have grown to their largest levels. despite crime falling in each of those years. The Police Advisory Committee, the Diversity Task Force, and the City Council are not addressing this. What's your reaction to the discrepancies, and what do you plan to do? Will you consult with any experts beyond the police chief? Holly?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we are doing to promote diversity here in Tiburon. So we actually made history in Tiburon. We included a diversity element in our general plan, and no one else has done that. Now, after the Yema incident, we worked with our police department. We have a new chief and a brand-new department. And we made sure that community policing was happening. We looked at different stops. We looked at how do we make it better? And all of that is happening. We went from the Yema incident to the most successful diversity inclusion task force here in Marin County. We instituted anti-bias training throughout our entire police department, through our town staff, and for all of our commissions. And we've also held amazing, amazing community events like Juneteenth. Diwali is on November 2nd. And I want to invite everyone to attend. So we are definitely addressing all of these issues you mentioned.
Andrew?
Yeah, that was a really tragic incident. Should have never happened. And it shouldn't have never happened because every single one of our officers should know our merchants downtown. Absolutely. And that's really one of my hallmarks, is it's really bringing us together. I have, as you know, I organized a series of, every year, all the neighborhood associations and council summits. Same thing with the business to community, so everyone really knows each other. We're more of a family. And that just has to be pushed all the time. And I'm even calling for a full-time person to support that Tiburon Together initiative. It's on my website. It goes far beyond just the normal duties of a council member, but it will enrich our lives, our whole community, and even households themselves. And that extends to the business community, bringing people of different backgrounds all together into various volunteer projects.
Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure. Since the Yema incident in 2020, Tiburon has increased the number of police in patrol cars, is on track for the greatest number of citizen detentions, and racial disparities in stops have grown to their largest levels, despite crime falling in each of those years. The Police Advisory Committee, the Diversity Task Force, and the City Council are not addressing it. What's your reaction to these discrepancies, and what do you plan to do? Will you consult with any experts beyond the police chief?
Great, thank you for the question. I think this is an issue on town accountability, right? I mean, we had, I agree with Andrew's comments, that police should have known everybody in our community. I mean, I think everybody from town council should go meet everybody who's new in their businesses and what they're doing. I think that was unfortunate what happened. But the fact of the matter of the data as presented, and I'd love to see the data, and that goes to the accountability piece, is that there shouldn't be any surprises. The police should know, the Diversity Inclusion Task Force should know, and town council should know this data right now and go and understand that and be engaged on that proactively, not reactively. And that's the challenge, and that's what, as a town council member, that's what I want to bring to bear, is that proactiveness. Identifying and asking those questions ahead of time, not waiting for it to be a reactive moment and then going point to point to point. That's not how to run a town. You'll run a town proactively, because 20% of the time you're going to get hit by things and you can't anticipate those, but 80% of the time you should be planning. Thanks a lot for the question.
Isaac?
Yeah, I think this is one that's kind of near and dear to me. I think it's incredibly important that each of our elected representatives are actually part of the community and make themselves available. When I was elected last August, in addition to going out and meeting with each of the HOAs that would have me. I also personally spent the time to walk down Main Street and Arc Row. I met every business owner that was open, gave them my personal cell phone number, and said, if you have any problems, please call me. And it doesn't have to be an emergency. It can also be, hey, no one's picking up my garbage, right? That's what matters. It matters to have elected officials that are part of the community, roll up your sleeves. I commend the work that the DITF did. I trust our police force. I think Chief Jean is fantastic. I met with her a couple of weeks ago and talked to her about what we can do, what she's thinking about in terms of increasing our technology. I think public safety is an incredibly important issue, and I'm looking forward to us making the next round of investments in terms of keeping residents in Tiburon safe.
Thank you. All right, for the next question, we're going to start with Andrew. This is a related question. How do you view Tiburon's efforts on fostering diversity and inclusion? How would you include people with diverse backgrounds in the town's decision-making process?
All right, well, first, it starts with what I mentioned before. Tiburon Together is an initiative that's essentially the ills of the internet. Surgeon General's declared an emergency of loneliness because we're all just doing digital communication. There's no face-forward communication between neighbors anymore. We all know endless publications about what's happening to our youth and social media. This is to combat all of these bad sides of what's happening in our society. When I grew up here, we were all it was an extended family. We don't have that anymore. I want to change that completely. Yes, it's idealistic, but they also said we couldn't build a town hall without a tax, and I did that. So I would like you to read that, take a look at it, that by doing that, it brings all these people together in their community that wouldn't normally be interacting. And that is how you really break down prejudice, barriers, and everything else, by working on things together that you wouldn't normally, and you build entirely new bonds and friendships that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Thank you. Chuck?
Great, thanks for the question. I think that what we need to focus on is getting the thoughts and perspectives is the town needs to bring something out to people. The expectation of going out and telling us what is there has to be a give and take, or a give from town council to the community, to have them give you that information. That's one piece. The other piece is I would take some of the aspects of the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force and actually mainline that into the Heritage and Arts group. They have a great deal of events with Diversity Task Force, which is awesome. Holly mentioned one of them earlier today, but those should just be mainlined with all the other activities we have as a town, so things aren't kept separate as a different group. It's that integration of all the different cultures that we have here, and actually something that I learned when I was going through the piece is that actually over a third of the people who live in Tiburon were born actually in another country. I think that's awesome. That's just great, and we need to celebrate that diversity by bringing them into different events and mainlining it with everything else that we're doing. Thank you again.
Thank you. Isaac?
Yeah, so I grew up in Santa Clara, California, which was and is a pretty diverse city. It was great for a lot of reasons, but that was one of them. I had friends of many different races, walks of life, and as you can probably tell by looking at me, I was every mom's favorite because I ate just about everything. Tiburon is a little different, right? And because Tiburon's a little different and great, and we love it. Our family chose to live here, and it's fantastic. I applaud what the DITF is doing. I think Persian New Year, which I helped organize, Diwali, Juneteenth, Asian American Pacific Islander awareness. It's ways of understanding where different people are from, where they're coming from, understanding more about their food and their culture helps us relate to them. And I think we all want to be treated with respect, no matter what walk of life you come from. And I think learning more about each other's background helps us get there. So I'm happy about what we're doing, and I look forward to continuing that.
Holly?
Thank you so much for that question. You know, I've chaired the Diversity Inclusion Task Force for the past 4 years now. I'm really proud of our work. I'm proud of our town. You know, when you ask the question of how do you include people of diverse backgrounds in Tiburon's community, you include them. And we are doing it by providing bias training to all of our staff and commissioners, by holding events that bring awareness of other people's cultures, but also bring the community into the events, by having our town create a diversity element and say that every decision we make in our general plan has to be looked through the lens of diversity. This is how you do it. Now, I think you all know, I'm a single mom with 2 children. I moved here from San Francisco. My kids were in public school in San Francisco where there was true diversity. That was a consideration for me. I was worried. So part of my work on the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force is to give back and to try to make sure that all of the children growing up in Tiburon have a diversity.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to begin with Chuck. The Post Commission has now selected subcommittees to review all of the work. Wouldn't it be better for the Town Council and Post to work together to identify projects which may have a priority and provide a budget that is acceptable to the Town Council currently, instead of re-reviewing projects that are many years away from being addressed and possibly approved?
Great, thanks for the question. So I'm chairperson of the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Commission, and I've been on it for 6 years. And the reason why we decided to do these subcommittees is we already know what the priorities are, and some of them are really easy, low-hanging fruit ones, like addressing maintenance issues and small improvements at the mini parks at Cypress Hollow, Bel Air, and Belvron Mini Park. Small pieces on that. The other thing that we wanted to do immediately was there was great energy from the Parks and Rec plan that we put together. So grabbing that energy now with the subcommittees and bringing engaged citizens who are ready to do something now is a better approach. The plan is, once we go through these pieces, is actually to bubble up these things and take them to town council, and hopefully I'll be on town council to be part of that decision-making process, and to decide what those next steps are. And that will happen in Q2 probably of next year. But it's being proactive, it's planning ahead, and taking the enthusiasm and energy that we have now within the community and addressing it. Thanks again for the question.
Thanks. Isaac?
Yeah, so to answer your question, I'd first like to start with what is the process of the Parks Master Plan that I started a couple of years ago. And it's really a framework for decision making. It's listening to you. It's understanding what's important to you, and then prioritizing that, coming up with a decision making framework for how we're going to go about it. It's a lot about collaboration. It's less us telling you what we're going to do. It's more hearing from you, listening to you, and then being able to gather that and put together a prioritized list. There's been a lot of misinformation about, oh, we're going to do this here, we're going to do that there. Town Council has not directed anyone to do any work beyond, let's get this Parks Master Plan done. And then from there, we'd like to go back out and figure out what some good projects are that we can break ground on in the next 12 months. So I think that's the main thing to take away. If you take away anything, it's that we're going to decide the framework for how we make decisions and publish what's been important to the town based on surveys. From there, we're going to start reaching out to you about things that are in your neighborhoods or that you care about.
Thank you. Holly?
Thank you so much for that question. So, the Parks Master Plan, as Isaac very eloquently said, is a framework. It is not us, the town council, telling you what you want in your park or your neighborhood. Through the process, we identified what the community wants, and then we are going to see where that can go and what the community thinks of the places that the things might go. However, I'm very concerned about private subcommittees, ad hoc committees can meet without the public. I think this whole process needs to be a transparent process where the public is let in. I do think it's a better framework for the council to work with Post at a public meeting and have residents come. In the end, it will be the community that decides, not a small group of people outside of the public view. So I have always stood for transparency and letting the public in, and I really hope that that will continue to happen through this process, because the master plan park process has been one of the best. It's been great to hear from all of you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, this is probably one of the best examples of why I'm running, is while all this, the park planning was very well intended, this is where my experience and knowledge of Tiburon really is needed. We did not need to hire a consultant to the tune of $300,000 in surveys, and then another, I think we're on the hook for another $150,000 for them to give us recommendations. This is what we could have done ourselves. This is what a good council does. They roll up their sleeves, they meet with the community, they meet with through every neighborhood, and we do it ourselves. We end up having the experience of interaction ourselves. We get better understanding, and what happens then, you end up with this big master plan, and you say it's not being imposed on you, but that's what happens. It feels like it, because every neighborhood thinks they're going to get run over by this big master plan, and they're not going to have a voice. It's just the wrong way to go about it, and we could have spent that $500,000 rebuilding a bunch of parks. That's what I do, and that's how we got this built.
Thank you. What should be the most urgent priorities for the town council for reducing greenhouse gases and fighting climate change? And we're beginning with Isaac.
All right. There are things that I've been supporting, I think, from the last election and before. Really, I think electrification is incredibly important in town. I think it's more efficient. It's a great use of money. I think one of the projects that I was most excited about supporting was helping Captain Maggie with her conversion to electric. It's going to benefit downtown. We're looking there. Solar panels are being installed. Batteries are being installed that can help downtown businesses keep the lights on when PG&E goes out. I think that's one of the things that we need to think about as a town. Again, going back to where I grew up, Santa Clara has its own power company. It's another thing that they've done to keep rates low. So if you're on a fixed income, they're paying a third of what we pay here in Tiburon. So I think there are ways that our town can again take control back and plan for the future, plan for a green future. So I think again, electrification is something I'm very passionate about.
Thank you. Holly?
Yes, I want to take a moment to thank you for that question. Earth recorded its hottest day ever on July 22nd of 2024. And when we look at climate change, it's really about two primary ways that we reduce and address climate change: reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to the changing environment. I'm really proud that I see Santa Thomas here, and we have a climate element in our general plan. We also declared a climate emergency. Thank you, Santa. I support building electrification. I actually called at the last town council meeting that it be placed on our next agenda. 85% of greenhouse gas emissions comes from the as-built environment. We're very lucky that our Tiburon ferry is going to set the standard for the state. We are going to have an all-electric ferry system here in Tiburon. We got a $24 million state CARB grant for electrification. We're also part of the Beacon program, and I see that my time's up. So I will just say there's a lot more on climate.
Andrew?
Okay, well, I definitely walked the talk here. Back in the 90s, you had to go through design review to put solar panels on your house. So I got that. I said, this is ridiculous. Took it from a whole design review process with an application fee, and I said, it's going to be an across-the-counter permit. If it's flush to the roof, it's an across-the-counter permit, and we're waiving all fees. Staff's like, that's so radical. And I go, yeah, it's radical. That's what we're doing. It was so popular, the county adopted the plan. I don't even know if they still charge or not. The other thing was, I'm a big supporter of electrification. Oh, and then I ran for supervisor. What people just went over everybody's head was I always wanted to take us out of PG&E so that we could underground, go green, and do all this stuff. Unfortunately, this was 2004, and it just went way over everybody's head. It was just too far ahead of my time.
Thank you. Chuck?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
What should be the most urgent priorities for the town council for reducing greenhouse gases and fighting climate change?
Great, thanks a lot. So in Marin County and also in the GHG inventory for the town of Tiburon, it's transit is actually the biggest driver. So it's identifying ways to improve carpooling, to get people on using bicycles. So in my transit plan, actually, it's putting in different bicycle pods that would be both here, Blackie's Pasture, at the Cove, and down in Strawberry. And it's identifying ways to electrify the fleet here in Tiburon, and we actually have done a really good job on that. The second thing I would be doing is actually adding solar panels on the library here. I actually went and spent about 3 meetings trying to get solar to be put on that roof, and it didn't happen. I'll go back and keep trying to do it, and I think Crystal, the librarian, is trying to make that happen, but that's another piece that we need to do. And then finally, it would be in terms of electrification for municipal buildings. So it's removing the natural gas that's used for any kind of appliances and those pieces. But it's those major things, but transit is the biggest GHG emitter for us in Marin County. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to begin with Holly. Residence surveys show evacuation route maps and route signage are top priorities for disaster preparedness. What are your preparedness goals for the next 4 years? How would you promote education and planning around disaster preparedness?
Thank you so much for that question. I actually serve on the Disaster Council, that is Belvedere and Tiburon, and we work on this almost every day. We do have evacuation signage that will be going on to direct residents how to get out in the event of an emergency. Tiburon has one road in, one road out. So we need to make sure that everybody knows in the event of emergency how they can safely evacuate. So the biggest part is really education and making sure everyone has their maps. Right now, Tiburon 94920 is organizing. We're having a huge event on October 19th in Zielinski Park that will address this very question. So please come from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's going to be a lot of information there that will address this. So I think it's really resident education, preparing your own plan, and also working with our Tiburon 94920 and engaging our communities to work together in disaster preparedness.
Thank you. Andrew?
Can you give me the specific aspects of the question again?
I'll read the whole thing. It's probably easier than me calling out the most important part. Residence surveys show evacuation route maps and route signage are top priorities for disaster preparedness. What are your preparedness goals for the next 4 years? How would you promote education and planning around disaster preparedness?
Okay. Yeah, this is also part of Tiburon Together because we're going to be putting together an extensive network of communication beyond what we have today. It's going to be about neighbors knowing where everybody's gas line is and everything else so they're really connected. So the neighborhood thinks about we, not me. The evacuation situation is just horrible. I mean, if we have a major fire coming down from Ring Mountain with a heavy north wind, we can't get out of town. We do have 2 roads. We have Paradise Drive as well, but that's a windy, wooded area. So we just have to work through every scenario and think through every scenario and think about, okay, if we have this scenario, what are we going to do? So that we have the plan It's not of, oh, what's the plan? It's part of everybody's mentality, and we're ready.
Thank you. Chuck?
Great, thanks for the question. So the first thing I would do, my goal would be, we should have a disaster event. We should practice that. So just like they did in Blythedale Canyon and Mill Valley, we should do that. So the town council should ask the disaster preparedness joint group to plan that and make that happen so we can identify where we have issues and problems. We haven't done that since I've been here. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do in terms of education is there's a number of different organizations that already happen to do this. One is called Resilient Neighborhoods. I don't know if you guys have used it, but it's great. It focuses both on GHG reduction, but it's also on how to prepare for a disaster. It's a great program, and I think that would be something that all the neighborhoods could do together. And then there's also something called the FireWise community, which is also another set thing to deal with fire issues, which is very prevalent. I live right next to the open space up here. And finally, what I would also do is follow a similar model that they did in Mill Valley, which is called the Community Engagement Program, which follows exactly what they do in terms of emergency preparedness. There's models that exist out there. We don't have to replicate the wheel. We can leverage those pieces. So, thank you.
Isaac?
Yeah, so I live in the Del Mar neighborhood, and we actually have one of the board members here today, Colin Crawford, who is a recently nominated to the Disaster Recovery Advisory Board. And one of the things that I think we've done incredibly well in Del Mar is we know each other, we know our neighbors, we have block captains. Alexa Tolme, who lives one house down from me, is the person that I go to if there's a big issue. I think for it's important for neighborhoods to know each other. Like I had said earlier, you're elected representatives, and I think neighbors, you need to know each other and meet each other and get to know each other. So that's a big one. I think it's also one I would challenge previous town councils where, this is something that they haven't figured out. For what has Tiburon been around for 50 years, 60 years? Never had a plan? That's surprising to me. So I think that's something, I'm only about a year on, and something that I think will be a priority. I look forward to working with Colin and the Disaster Recovery Council on that.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to begin with Andrew. What are your priorities for capital improvement projects, and how does that align with your goals and vision for the town?
Well, that's pretty broad. Right now, we've got the recreation master plan that's started. I would like to see immediately, I think far too often, we're making decisions in these council chambers, and I've said this over and over to people all the time, you've got to make your decisions out where it's going to happen, because bad decisions are made when they're not made where it's happening. You don't see the impacts. I would have immediately, I think, right down in Blackie's pasture next to the restrooms there, we should be experimenting with volleyball courts and other things like that, and just see how much, instead of trying to make decisions in the abstract, let's see how many people are using it. Let's see what's going on. Then you'll know what you really need to do. Capital improvement, it's more of a coordination, but I do want to talk about Tiburon traffic. Is that coming up?
If we have time, it's coming up.
Boulevard traffic.
Let's try to get that done. Okay, let's move on to Chuck.
Great, thanks for the question. So just for everybody to know is that basically our CIP for this year, the capital improvement plan, is $4.2 million. And of that $4.2 million, about $2 million of it is for streets and gutters, just stuff that we gotta do. So there's not a ton of discretionary, so about half of it has to go to stuff that we just need to do to keep the town running, which is totally makes sense and that we need to do that. Other things that I would prioritize is at the Corp Yard, which is back over here by Reed, is a very, very, very old building, and it will be critical in an emergency. It needs to be rehabilitated. The town has slowly rebuilt the funds for that, but we need to spend money on that immediately. It's not sexy, but it's necessary. And those are the things that we need to do. And then I would identify a couple pieces in the parks plan, but not ultimately, though. It's got to be some stuff to make sure that resiliently as a town, we are able to survive and move forward on those pieces. And on the parks plan, since I still have a little bit of time, I would do a volleyball court. It's cost effective.
Isaac?
Yeah, so we just went through this on town council, and I think for any of us that live here in town, our roads are not in great shape, and I think that's something that we need to spend money on. It's an important piece. I think parks is an easy one from a capital improvement standpoint. If the priority is replacing a couple of playgrounds and and that sort of thing, I think the one that nobody talks about is improving public safety. I think that comes in a couple of forms. One is we've got to upgrade our technology infrastructure through town, the cameras, other tools for the police force to help identify who's coming into town, who they're targeting, where they're targeting, so that we can stop this rash of burglaries and other property crimes that are happening right now. So we've got to make sure that the police force has the tools they need to be able to act quickly and stop this predatory group of folks from coming in and committing property crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of questions we didn't get to. Let's see if this is going to be our last one, I think.
I think I didn't get to answer.
Oh,
If you don't want me to answer, it's okay, Linda.
you know,
If you're sick of hearing me talk.
I somehow always miss somebody, and I was patting myself on the back saying, you got through this one, Linda, and I didn't.
No, you're doing
Okay,
great. You're
Holly,
doing
go
great.
ahead.
You're doing great. So, but I'm super excited about capital improvement projects. That's why I wanted to talk. So I do have a vision. I always look at how can I make Tiburon better. All the public safety stuff, all the regular maintenance stuff, we're going to do that. Oh, see, now the lights are going out on me. It's okay. I'll still keep talking because I only have a minute. So most of you know I'm committed to reducing traffic on Tiburon Boulevard. Tiburon Trolley is one of my biggest capital improvement projects. I'm looking at getting state and federal funding. In addition, through the Parks Master Plan, there's a lot of exciting things to look at there. I'm only going to call out one of them, so don't get mad, y'all. But when we look at water access, we are on the water. We don't have any water access. I would love to see a kayak sup launch that's public. In addition, I saw during the pandemic that Comcast, which is the only provider here in Tiburon, does not have enough infrastructure to support all the children that needed to get to school online, the parents that needed to get to work. So I have started a program to bring broadband to Tiburon, created a partnership with Caltrans. So we're going to save $2 million or more by laying our fiber when Caltrans digs up the streets for their major projects. So those are just a few capital improvement projects that I'm super excited about.
Thank you. Okay, this will be the last question. Resident surveys show that drawing more Tiburon residents downtown and improving the economic viability of businesses are top revitalization priorities. How would you address this? And we start with Chuck.
Thanks for the question. So actually this morning I sat down and actually had breakfast with the owner of Caviar and Company, and actually for lunch I met with the owner of Cine Lounge, and we talked exactly about these items. And part of it is identifying stores and other reasons for people to come downtown. Part of it is in having ideas like music on Thursdays. So it would be Music Night Thursday that would be downtown, somebody playing at the plaza, and just being down there and having that music and encouraging people to come down to do things. And it's also identifying with them how we can accelerate permitting process within the town. It took 5 years for the owner of Sam's to get the store next to him to get that store opened. Why did it take 5 years? We need to be able to accelerate these pieces, because if I'm starting a new business, I'm going to want to know, when can I get it up? Because my landlord's going to start charging me rent immediately. How quickly can I get things up? And we haven't done that. So it's those kind of pieces about drawing people down, and I would actually increase the Friday nights on Main by 50%. Thank you.
Isaac?
Yeah, so I think drawing people downtown is a high priority. I meet regularly with Connor, who leads the group that owns Sam's, John Hoffman from ANC Ventures, met Christian with the movie theater. Lala Zelinsky, like I mentioned before. And I think the key things there are having family-friendly events downtown and other events, but also making sure there is that continuity where we need to connect, make sure Main Street and Arc Row are connected in a continuous downtown, so which will keep people there longer. I volunteered at the wine festival last weekend, and it was incredible to see when people were done with the wine festival that they were able to come downtown and enjoy the shops, and we didn't have to close anything. They just migrated over. So I think being able to use downtown for events like the wine festival, like Diwali, like Persian New Year at Zelinsky Park. It's a way to draw people downtown. I think the other way is by thinking about through the Parks Master Plan, how we can set up the right recreation areas, like maybe pickleball or other things like that. I said pickleball, don't shoot me. But other events like that can bring people downtown and get them to spend time downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Residents' surveys show that drawing more Tiburon residents downtown and improving the economic viability of businesses are top revitalization priorities. How would you address this?
Great. So I've spent a lot of time looking at this issue. When I started on the town council, there were many vacant storefronts. Then we got Bungalow. Bungalow came in. Then Malibu Farm. Then Squalo Vino. Then the Caviar Company. So Tiburon has amazing restaurants, amazing opportunities for residents to come downtown. Part of my plan is to have more Friday nights on Main, more events in downtown Tiburon, and also to look at working with our residents, with our restaurants and shop owners as to how we can attract customers to come down. The winter months are very bleak. People do not go downtown. I see our chamber president here. Melanie, I've worked very closely with the chamber in looking at downtown revitalization and attracting people to Tiburon. I've also worked with AC Argo, Lale Zelinsky, and all of the business owners, because it really takes a community strategy to ensure that our residents are buying Tiburon and shopping local and eating here. And that's what I've been working to promote.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, I think probably nobody knows the economy of Tiburon better than me. First of all, I'm in commercial real estate. When I was in office, I'd do my swim every Saturday morning here. I'd go to my favorite Little David Mike's Dive Diner, and then I would go around and meet with every single shop owner, and then end up at the Arc and trade gossip stories with Barbara Ganas. and I knew what was going on in Tiburon all the time. And there's a lot of good ideas here, but here's the main basic problem. I was also in office when Safeway left, was formerly the CVS. All the greatest stores came in and looked at it. They all came back, did their math, and said, there's not enough bodies on this peninsula, regardless of your incredible household income. So these stores, they die all winter to just hope they make it back in summer. So we have to change the dynamic. So yes, what does bring the people down? First of all, we do not have anything for little kids. We don't have a restaurant besides maybe, the Waypoint there where young families can bring kids. We also need to figure out what's going to be fun for residents. Maybe we do a bocce ball courts at Shark's Deli, and then we have a whole new dynamic environment down there. There's just a lot we can do, and I can't wait to do it because it's really fun. And we do need to, like Chuck says, we got to be nimble and quick and help them make things happen.
That concludes the question portion of this forum. Before candidates make their closing statements, here is some useful information about the election. As you all know, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Beginning yesterday, October 7th, ballots are being mailed to voters. Official ballot drop boxes are now available. You can vote in person at vote centers. Some will be open 11 days before Election Day. All will be open by November 2nd. October 21st is the last day to register online. After that, you can still register to vote in person. And now the candidates will make closing statements of 1 minute. We're going to go in reverse order of the opening statements, starting with Andrew.
Okay, well, I just want to say it's great to be back. I have been out meeting with everybody, talking about all the issues. I'm already seeing solutions and what I could do. My friends say, "Are you crazy?" And I go, "I'm different. I love this. I love making a difference. This is my town. I feel like everybody's my extended family, and I'm loving it." I think a funny story is two of the incumbents called me when I heard I was running. They go, "Well, you know, Andrew, you can run in 2 years. There's going to be 3 seats." And "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well, because I think you need my help now and my experience." And I said, "By the way, you can run in 2 years too." Now, okay, I got to laugh. That's what I was trying to do. But there's a really good side of that. What I want you guys to know is that stepping away and then returning gives you wisdom, gives you insights, time to reflect. So it is not the end. So 2 people are not going to make it. It is not the end. We're still Team Tiburon, and there's always a chance to come back and contribute. So I hope we can all do that.
Thank you. Holly?
So I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the ARC. You all have a choice today, and I hope that you'll choose me on November 5th. Tonight I asked you to join me in imagining the Tiburon of the future. We love it here. Let's make it even better, but we have to finish. The story isn't written yet. We need to take those ideas from the park's master plan and get more community input and make them into a reality. We need to get broadband, diversity, Tiburon trolley, our traffic study, climate change, emergency preparedness, and our housing element finalized and ensure that we protect Tiburon from the builder's remedy. To my endorsers, to Congressman Jared Huffman, State Senate President Mike McGuire, Assemblymember Damon Connolly, Supervisor Moulton Peters, the Marin IJ, the Sierra Club, the Democratic Party, Marin Professional Firefighters, Marin Women's Political Action Committee, Marin County Young Dems, I want to say thank you. And I want to say to all of you that life isn't really about the number of breaths that you take. It's about the moments that take your breath away, and your support and this campaign has taken my breath away, so thank you.
Thank you. Isaac?
Yeah, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the ARC for hosting tonight. Our family was drawn to Tiburon about 13 years ago because of the beautiful open space, the excellent schools, and safe community. After almost 13 years and three children that went through the Reed School District and are now at Redwood all together, I'm ready to give back and continue to give back more to my community. I support preserving Tiburon's unique character, reducing traffic, keeping Tiburon fiscally sound, protecting the environment, combating climate change, ensuring emergency preparedness. And I was elected by the residents of Tiburon last fall to improve Tiburon and get things done. And I've started that work, and I hope that over the past year I've earned your vote again. So respectfully, I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thanks. Chuck?
Thank you. Thanks again for hosting this event, and I hope it gave everybody an opportunity to hear questions and also get to know us a little bit better. I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank those who are endorsing me, particularly all the local leaders, including the current and former heads of the school foundations, the head of the PTA, local business leaders, as well as former mayors. I appreciate the trust that they've shown in me by my consistent commitment to community engagement and improvement. My priorities are your priorities: quality of life, safety, traffic, and town accountability. I've demonstrated that my consistent commitment to the town and its residents, and I pledge to continue to be available, attending meetings, encouraging collaboration with the staff. In closing, a few weeks ago, I was speaking to a longtime business owner who also grew up here, and he said, "I agree that Tiburon is a great place, but it's the Tiburon of 20 years ago. We do need to make some incremental changes to build for the Tiburon 20 years from now," which includes a lot of the events that we talked about, the spillover events from large, like the wine festival. It was awesome. It was great to see those people downtown. And it's also focusing on the traffic and other items. If you have any other questions on me, or my priorities and palace outcomes and specific plans, you can find me at hornbrookfortiburon.com. And thanks again, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. And that concludes our forum. Thank you to the ARC. Whoa. Thank you to the ARC and the Marin County League of Women Voters for making tonight's forum possible. Thank you to the candidates for participating, to Elaine Biagini for timekeeping, and to Carol Joy Harris for collecting and reviewing questions. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for voting. Good evening.